Well, welcome everybody. This is the latest podcast, except it's not really a podcast, is it? And I'm Mark from MCC, and I'm here with Jenna, who is working with us at MCC over the summer.
Yeah,
So,
good.
yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jenna.
Sure, I'm a summer student, and yeah, this job just lined up perfectly, and it's a huge honor to be here.
Well, it's an honour to have you, so
Good.
there we go. So, refugee sponsorship, it's about the ability of newcomers to adjust to Canadian society, it's about their social needs, it's about their emotional needs, but it's also about their practical economic needs. And so we're going to be talking about finance. Because even before we can send in an application to government, we need to know that the money is going to be there to support the newcomers for the full year of sponsorship. So we need to know how much money to raise, where to keep it, and how to keep track of it over the year of sponsorship. So those three things.
And how does that work, Mark?
Well, it depends who we're working with. Who is the sponsorship group? So with churches and established charities, they look after the money. We give them guidance, but they are responsible for the money, provided that they have got a separate account or separate sub-account that's ring-fenced for refugee work.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have to worry too much about them. They do their own support. Usually churches will say, look, we need this much money to do this sponsorship, and people come up with the money.
Right. How do they raise that money?
Good question. I don't always. I mean, a lot of people it's just giving money. It's
Okay.
yeah. I mean, with other groups, the money may not be there. It may not be so easy to raise the money, and we've got groups that do garage sales. We've got groups that do online sales.
Okay.
We had a group that made T-shirts and sold them.
Oh, cool.
We work with Nest, which actually is an established charity, but they do garden tours and charge people to go around people's nice gardens.
Cool.
There are some groups that have friends or contacts abroad who are prepared to put in money. We've received funding at different times from the US, from Germany, from Britain, even from Saudi Arabia. So those groups, the ones that are not churches or established charities, we do expect them to lodge the money with us for the duration. They need to give us all the money at the time of application, with some exceptions, which I'll come to in a bit, and then we give it back to them to give to the to use for the sponsorship over the year of sponsorship. Now the exception is that there are people that we've worked with a number of times in the past, and we trust them and we know that they're reliable, and we'll say to them, okay, if you can't manage 100% right up, then we'll accept 2/3 and the other third by the time that the people arrive, and we have to make a good guess as to when the people will arrive, because it's not always easy to know.
Right.
So
Is there anybody MCC cannot accept money from?
Yeah. We can't accept the proceeds of crime.
Right.
But
Right.
also, and this is really, really important, we can't accept money from the refugee themselves,
Okay.
because they are not paying their way to come to Canada. They are coming to Canada because they need help. And so, while some people may have money, that's not the point. The point is to help people who are stuck in a situation that they need to be got out of.
Right.
And we need to be able to help the people who are who don't have those financial resources, as well as the people who do. So, yeah.
Right.
One thing I should talk about is that we can help people raise the money by the giving registry that we have on our website. It's on the MCC national website, which should be visible on the screen now. So you can see the URL there, donate.mcccanada.ca/find-a-registry #! And just to show you one of the ones that we put on there. Moms for Refugees is a group that we've worked with an extended family of Syrians over several years. We're currently bringing some of the family from Turkey. We just put in that application this year.
Cool.
So you see what they've done here. There's a little bit of a blurb about the family that they want to bring, and they set their goal, which can be adjusted. These things can be edited as circumstances change. And then when you've entered this, you tell all your friends, hey, this is one way that you can put money straight into the pot that we've got at MCC. So that's one way we can help in the raising of funds, and there's no charge for that in the way that there would be on some of the commercial
GoFundMe
or those type of things.
Okay.
Yes.
Right on.
Yeah. So
I heard there are some government rules about money. Can you give more information about that?
Sure. Now that is a little bit different, but I mean basically the rules are about how much money you need to raise in order to do a sponsorship for a particular family in a particular place with particular circumstances. So I'll show you one of the sites that helps to explain that, I guess.
Okay.
This is, I should explain. IRCC, that's Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada.
Okay.
I always forget these acronyms. They are concerned to prevent fraud and to make sure that all refugees are treated properly during their year of sponsorship.
Okay.
So, apparently, we don't know much about this, but apparently there have been some problems in some cases with people, not doing what they should do with refugees.
Okay.
So they've set a number of rules as to how much money you're required to give. And these are regulations that we have to stick to. If we don't, then it can affect the future ability of the sponsorship group to sponsor, but it can also affect our ability to sponsor.
Okay.
So, most of these regulations are quite sensible. So this is a site that gives you the numbers of the minimum that IRCC are demanding.
Okay.
So this is put together by RSTP, which is the Refugee Sponsorship Training Programme. They were set up by the government to enable private sponsors to learn how to do private sponsorship.
Right.
And they do a good job, and one of the things they do is they provide this financial support calculator. So let's say we're sponsoring a family to bring to Saskatoon. Let's say they're coming in October. Let's say there's 5 people, and there's a couple and 3 children, and we don't need to worry about those, and we don't know of them having any income. And the children are, 13, 11 and 9. So then calculate the minimum support, and there you get those numbers. straight away. And you can look through and you can see what that money is to be spent on. So on staples, on clothing, on basic household needs, on furniture, on linens, and so on. That's the start-up costs.
Mm-hmm.
And then for monthly costs, again, there's a basic needs allowance, shelter allowance, that's accommodation and utilities. But then they add on a housing supplement because rent is never cheap.
Right.
Communication, so essentially a cell phone, and transportation. So that's essentially what does it cost to use the bus on the cheapest option that's available. So that's the RSTP calculator. The one thing I should show you is that there's a facility here for in-kind support. If somebody is wanting to give, I don't know, a sofa, a good second-hand, high-quality sofa, but they're not paying for it, and neither is the sponsorship group. Let's say that somebody wanted to give a sofa.
Right.
And so we look at the furniture allowance. Up to 70% of that can be in kind. And, there's quite a big furniture allowance. Let's say, more than one sofa. Let's say that we can actually manage to get enough in-kind donations of furniture. So that's that much, over $2,700
Okay.
Worth of furniture. So that will then reduce the amount of money that's required because it's being given with things rather than money.
Right.
So that's the way that, that's the RSTP calculator.
Right on.
I'd also like to offer another calculator that's basically it's the same thing, but it's a spreadsheet that I put together specifically for Saskatchewan.
Okay.
So with that RSTP calculator, obviously you can do it for any province because they've got the numbers entered in for any province, and the minimum numbers vary from province to province because standard of living and cost of living vary from province to province. So we've got single person, so family size of 1, no children. Let's say again they're arriving in October, and we've got all the numbers here. We've got the maximum figures for in-kind donations for each of those categories here.
Oh, right on.
So if all those maxima are hit, then the start-up costs can be reduced by that much to that much. And then on the monthly costs, that should be that figure, which we take from here, and that should be this figure for the transport. And so we end up with, it's 19,500 for a single person living in their own place, at their own rented place in Saskatoon, according to this calculation. I do actually include some contingencies in there because some people need dental treatment, which isn't covered under the Interim Federal Health Programme.
Right.
Some dental is, but there's detailed treatment that can't be.
Right.
Or somebody might need, a laptop or,
Right.
you know,
Eye care.
or eye care, or there's a few things. Or the housing might be a little bit more than what this numbers say, which frequently it is. So there's the number that we come to, but with in-kind contributions, you can reduce it to that. And of course, you can play around with this. You can increase the accommodation cost if the group can't find anywhere that cheap.
Right.
Which is often the case, then you can use this to say, well, okay, we need more than that. And that's, that helps you to budget. So This sheet is about budgeting. The other sheets in this spreadsheet are about recording the finances that you have made available.
Okay.
So let's start with the startup costs. So you can do startup in kind and you can do startup purchase with money. So let's assume that on the 20th of July, you acquire some furniture through a donation that's worth about $2,000. Just enter it there, and it shows up down here as a total. Obviously, you can put in lots more of these in the relevant category. It will automatically note whether you've hit the maximum that you're allowed in that particular category. And it will calculate, where you are at with your in-kind allowance, so to speak. But also, let's say you spend, let's say, 3,000 on something. Again, that enters here. So between those two, we end up with a shortfall that is that much.
Gotcha.
Now, the other thing that I can show you here is that if this person has come with money from abroad, then, I won't do the date and the record type, but let's say they brought $5,000. At that point, well, they're actually allowed to bring $5,000. But let's say they brought $10,000. Well, 5,000 of that actually can count towards the sponsorship. And so that's 5,000 less that you are required to give. You can still give it if you want to, but you're not required to.
Okay.
And we do a similar thing for each month. Okay, this is set up so from day 1 of the month to day 28 or 30 or 31 of the month, whatever it is. So the first month will inevitably be a part month, it'll be a short month, and so will the last one. But you do the same thing here, so you can enter the items given in kind, which monthly is really only if you're providing the housing in kind, or if you're providing, if they're actually living with relatives who have signed the documents of sponsorship. So those are the only cases where that would apply. And actually, if we go back to the initial sheet, you can see where we can adjust for that we can enter yes for housing in kind and yes for living with a party to the sponsorship. And that actually reduces the amount required very substantially. But otherwise, let's just say you make out a check for 2,000 to them. That is then automatically entered in, and we continue to have a negative shortfall, which is what we want, what we're going to want. Well, we want to have a shortfall of 0, but negative is
Right.
is better than positive.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's really about how it works. And for those of you who are watching, those of you who are listening, you do not need to remember all this now. If you are going to sponsor, then I can go through it with you, and help you go through it. And if you want to use your own method of keeping records, please use your own, this may be intuitive for some people, it may not be for others. So do what works for you. But anyway, I hope that this has been helpful in, explaining what's possible. So, I
Very
think
good.
that's everything we need to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Thank you,
for
Jenna.
thank you for having me.
Yeah.
That's very good. Very straightforward. Very organized.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I hope everybody who's listening thinks so too.
Yeah. For sure.